Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. We've got 90 minutes to finish this course. Can we do it? I think we can, okay? How does it feel? You made it. Challenging semester, challenging course. What do you have left? What, you got exams? You got projects? What do you got? $388 and $481 project due. When? Is it due tomorrow?
388 is due Wednesday, 481 is due Friday.
That's weird. It's like in the middle of exam season. Huh. I don't think they're supposed to do that.
I have one guitar class, and my undergrad career is over.
One guitar class. Okay. Very cool. Yes?
Just post-mortem.
A post-mortem.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, don't forget about that. Okay? Some pretty easy points unless you forget about it. And we always have some people do that. What else? What do we got? Is that it? Yeah?
I got a 376 final and
Oh.
my math project, which
You-
I just got to reread again.
You heard about my 376 story, right?
Yeah.
So you can spend time studying. You can go buy some horseshoes. Okay? Whatever it takes. All right. Yes.
I've got to write and record a podcast as well as finish writing up some more EPM music, and I have to write some reports for an honors project.
Okay. Reports, podcasts. Sounds fun. Sounds not too bad. Well, you're almost there, everyone. You've done a good job this semester, and very, very impressed. Okay. We'll talk a bit about more. Talk a little bit about more about that in just a bit. But we got a couple things we got to finish up. Number one, you do have a postmortem, okay? As was said, you don't want to forget about this. Not too bad, all right? This one is going to be due on Friday, right? So you've got a handful of days to do it. This one, here's the thing, okay? In my other courses, we usually do one postmortem after every project. Here, we've got a postmortem for the entire course. And so it's a little bit longer than the other courses, but keep in mind, we don't care about grammar, okay? We don't care about writing style. We don't care about structure. We haven't done a postmortem in this class before, actually. So a quick note on how it goes. You're going to look at this template. You're going to read an answer, and the first thoughts that come to your head, you dump them out of your brain onto the page, okay? And that's how it goes, all right? The main purpose of this postmortem is to... Well, number one, I guess get you a nice chunk of points, easy, right? But number two, to make you look back, make you think, okay? There aren't really wrong answers here. The point is to get you to think about what this experience was like, to look back, right? Relive some of those moments, those memories, those decisions that you made, and to think, what could I have done better? All right? This won't be the last cool, big technical project you take on. And so it really behooves us to think about how we're going to make the next one go better. All right? And so if you've taken 494 or 440, you know what that process is called? There's a name for it. Remember that image, it's the circle, right? What's it called? Yes?
The iterative design.
That's right, iterative design process. The idea here is that you do something, you analyze how it went, that's the postmortem part. You design some changes, and you keep going around in that circle, okay? Things get better and better and better when you do that. Sometimes it gets worse, but then the next week it's better, okay? So you're going to answer questions like, hey, have you done any game engine stuff? What knowledge did you bring into the course? What was it like making that shoot 'em up, that cute 'em up in the 3 different engines at the beginning of the course? You're going to talk about, your custom feature. You're going to talk about some of the doldrums of homework 6. Okay, I'm sure I'm going to hear about some of those off by 1 pixel issues. All right. This postmortem is mainly for you, but it's also for the course staff. I read every single one and grade them personally. So if you've got any thoughts or ideas, that really helps us iterate and improve this course for the future, okay? And I'm really, really excited about this course. Hopefully it'll be around for a long time. Hopefully it'll have the impact that I think we've had this time, okay? So not a super long assignment. Do not spend a lot of time thinking about each question. Just look back a little bit, dump your thoughts, dump your emotions, and be done with it, okay? And then go and have a wonderful summer. There are a couple other things to talk about before we get to our last topic. Let me see here really quickly. We do have a final jam, which is optional. It's extra credit, and you definitely do not need to do it. You can do it with a team if you want to. You can do it on site. I don't know exactly where we're going to be. I think probably we'll be at Ann Arbor Spark downtown. Right, there's a bunch of food there. It's a good space to do this kind of thing. But I'll announce some more details in the next few days, all right? Regardless, you can participate from anywhere, okay? You can just kind of Discord in. We're going to have a kind of live video and voice channel there. Hang out if you want to. And you can pretty much just kind of show up at the end of the jam with a game to show off if you want to. It's not particularly fun to do it that way, but you can do it that way, okay? You will be able to have teams of up to 3 people, okay? You'll have to figure out which of your game engines you want to use, perhaps who has the weirdest or coolest special feature or the most stable code base. I don't know. You can figure that out however you want to figure that out, okay? But participating in the jam should be a nice, easy little block of points for you. If you are on the edge of jumping to the next grade, this could be the thing that puts you up. There are not that many points in this course. Only 1,000 normal points, barring extra credit. And I haven't tallied the extra credit. I might be done tallying the other extra credits by that time. Don't leave it up to chance, okay? But if you can't make it, you can't make it. That's all right, okay? I'm really excited for you to actually use these things we've been working on for the last 3 or 4 months, okay? There's a good bit of blood, sweat, and tears in these repos. So it's going to be good to see these things really get put to use. There's this thing that happens sometimes in a community. I see it a lot, where you'll have someone who really loves making engines, and that's fantastic. They can make engines all day if they want to, but they'll say, I'm making an engine to make a game. And then they never make the game, okay? It's just, I'm going to make the game when I finish the next feature. And there's always another feature. There's always another bug, always another problem to solve before I can make my game, and you never make the game, okay? Well, no, we're going to make a game, and I think it's pretty important you do that. You're making a game engine. You need to make a game to know if it's working properly. You will probably find bugs that the autograder did not chase out. And this is how you'll be able to find them, fix them, and get a feel for just how easy your engine is to use, okay? You can make fixes over the summer if you want to. How many of you, and be honest, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't return to this engine for a while or ever, how many of you do have some mild plans to I might play around with the engine, I get some time? That does warm my heart, but don't feel any pressure, okay? If you do make improvements, post them to the exhibition channel and let me know. I think I say this to my other courses, but really, this job pays okay, but not amazing. Educators really like to see their students and what they do in the future and what they're up to. That's a really big deal, okay? And pretty much everyone forgets. Oh well, it's a bit sad. Anyway, all right, so do whatever you want, and we're going to finish this thing up, okay? All right. Oh, by the way, anyone know who this is? I've talked about Andy Gavin and the incredible 2-hour Naughty Dog, basically founding interview with Crash Bandicoot. We're going to talk about that more today. He had a teammate, and it's right here, Jason Rubin, who is a Wolverine, okay? They did just an amazing, amazing job. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. First, we have one final game engine of the day. This one, Defold, is an engine brought to you by King. Okay, King. I sometimes mix up Zynga and King. Zynga does the Words with Friends, the Zynga Poker. What else do they do? They're famous for. What are they famous for? The farming game. What is that? Farmville. Yes. King is famous for what? Candy Crush. Clash of Clans, right? All that good stuff. Now, note, they've since been purchased by Activision, and Activision has since been purchased by Microsoft. So, I don't know. Perhaps we will see Halo-themed Candy Crush coming to mobile devices soon. I don't know. But this is actually, the engine itself is a little bit more interesting to me because it's actually kind of a multi-studio engine. Because this engine was created in 2008 by Christian Murray and Ragnar Svensson, not at King, but at Avalanche Studios, which does the Just Cause series. I think they just made the Harry Potter game. And they do a lot of really cool stuff. They made the Toy Story stuff, Disney Infinity, really cool studio in Salt Lake City, Utah. And apparently, they were actually able to take the engine they made while they were there, and they actually brought it to Zynga. So perhaps Avalanche is very kind of loose about that stuff, or very dev-friendly, very hobbyist-friendly. Anyway, they brought it over to King, where they were allowed to keep working on it. It kept getting cooler and cooler, and suddenly some of the internal teams at King started using it for some of their games. Now, you want to say, oh my gosh, this is the engine of Candy Crush. It is not. They did not use this engine for all their games, but they did use it for some of them, including Blossom Blast Saga and a few others, which you see down here. Now, this reminds me of that time King got in trouble. There was some controversy. They make Candy Crush Saga. I think they make like Soda Pop Saga. They make Blossom Blast Saga. They attempted to trademark the word saga. So you can't use saga in a video game title anymore. And they threatened a few smaller teams, and that blew up. And I'm pretty sure they have since stopped, which is probably for the best. Here's the thing, like, you can try and litigate against people. You might even have the rights to do that, but there's usually additional costs you might not realize to that kind of thing. Like when Apple's weighing whether to sue someone, if Disney is weighing whether to sue, the young, what's a kind of a common illness? They recently did this. They sued like a charity organization for playing like Frozen in a park on a projector. And yes, it's their right to do that. No, it was not worth it because it blew up and a bunch of news articles came out and Disney looked very bad for doing that. Anyway, Bob Iger had to make a big donation and called off the dogs, mainly for the publicity hit to dodge that. Anyway, so just kind of an interesting thing to think about. There's a website for it, a pretty cool website, lots of features, got a visual editor, got a lot of platforms it can export for, which is pretty good stuff. Even exports for Facebook games, which is a little interesting. Mainly a 2D engine. It can do 3D-like games. There's a number of people who use it and support it. There's a source repository. So one thing you should always check is you should not assume MIT license. And whenever you see license.txt, it's a little bit spooky. This is the default license. Oh, well, gee, what is that? Anyone know what the default license is? Well, in this case, what happened was default plucked a license off the shelf. They didn't grab MIT. I think they grabbed Apache 2, which is very MIT-like, very permissive. But they grabbed it off the shelf and they made a tweak to it, kind of a weird tweak. So it's a very permissive engine. You can do all sorts of stuff with it, but there's one thing you can't do that you could normally be able to do, but you can't do here. What can't you do? This is mildly interesting. This is the most mildly interesting part of the entire lecture, I think. It's not quite interesting, but it's almost interesting. They don't allow you to sell the engine itself. Okay, that kind of makes sense, right? But like, wait a second, do people do that? Do people like grab Godot, which is MIT licensed, like package it up, slap another logo on it, and try and sell it to people? I've never seen that. But the existence of this license makes me think people have probably tried. Okay. Anyway, yeah, that's it. That's really the only change. Anyway, yep, focus on 2D, very cross-platform. 3D is limited. It's source available. I feel like it's pretty much open source, but you do have that additional restriction on the default license. This is a quick tour of the visual editor, so you can just kind of see how it looks. Not too much time we'll spend on this, but just take a look.
Collection tells you what game objects with which components will be created in runtime and preserves the hierarchy between them, the child-parent relations. Those relations are visible in and translated directly from the tree view in outline. For more tightness, you can also group collections inside collections. If you want to create game objects dynamically in the code, you can do this with factory component. The same for collections with collection factory component. I will also explain in depth dynamic creation later on. For now, understand that everything you put in your main collection in the editor will be instantiated in the game engine when you run your game. So let's familiarize ourselves with the default editor. The editor window consists of 6 parts. And as you remember, the hierarchy is directly shown in the outline, and this is one of the parts of the editor. It is always on the right side, and you will always see a currently selected collection, game object, or component. Current editor view is in the middle. What is displayed here depends on what you have opened. There could be text editors, collections editors, particle effect editor, tile map editor, and more. It could also be split in half for convenience. On the left pane, called Assets, you have all the files in your project, resembling a catalog view tree in File Explorer. Below the outline, you also see the associated properties. On the bottom, in the middle, there is a pane with tools. Console, where all your printed output is displayed, Curve Editor for animating particles properties, build errors, and search results. Below is a list of change files if you are using Git for file versioning.
Yeah, so it's a little bit strange, right? In most editors, you would have your assets kind of on the bottom and not over here on the side. Your outline typically seems to be on the left side. Here it's on the right. Properties is down here. This is kind of like Unreal's default setup. It's really strange here that they took a chunk of your view and they said, we're going to assume you really care about version control and you want a list of all the things you've edited. Which I don't think, like, there are times when you really want that, but most of the time you don't, right? Like, most of the time when you're programming, you don't care which files you've altered until you go to do a push or merge or something. So it's a little bit strange. It's kind of like they didn't quite know what to do with this little corner square. So, I don't know. Why not? Let's make it something not so important. Anyway, kind of an interesting editor. They use Lua as a scripting language. So, it might not be super tricky for you to hop in if you want to. How does this team support itself? Well, one way is that they have support contracts. If you go on their website, there are some pretty big little buttons that say, hey, get support, right? And when you click on them, it turns out you can purchase a contract kind of like Red Hat style, where, you know, they will help you kind of develop your game. They will help you migrate stuff, integrate stuff. They might even be able to make some changes to the underlying source code if you need a special version, or if you need a critical bug fixed that's just tripping your project up, they'll be there to hopefully quickly solve that for you. This approach is an approach you see very commonly with open source software. Okay, it's fairly typical, actually, for a company to kind of create an open source project. Hey, it's free, it's open source. Wait a second. If our main product is free, that's a little bit of a problem, okay? How we keep our lights on. And this is one way they do it. They make all of the code and the main product available for free, but if you want special attention, if you're a big company, my impression is that one of the reasons U of M pays for Red Hat and uses Red Hat instead of some other distribution is because if things go bad, like UMich has a really bad day, like security-wise maybe, like maybe a couple semesters ago, like you really need the ability to call Red Hat and have their engineers like wake up in the middle of the night to like code red and do whatever you need them to do to get the problem fixed, okay? The stakes are simply that high, and U of M has some coin to spare, and so it makes sense, right? Anyway, pretty cool model, and yeah, pretty cool engine, okay? Jeremy Bond and I remember we're running a summer camp, and like years ago, and we were planning like, okay, what engine are we going to use? We ended up going with Construct 3, which is one of the engines you could have grabbed at the beginning of the semester. And we didn't go with Defold, but we looked at it. The reason we didn't go with Defold was that it doesn't have drag and drop like Construct or GameMaker does or Scratch does. It uses Lua, and Lua is a really cool language, but all those foot guns, right? Like little kids being subjected to that doesn't sound super good. But actually it makes me wonder now, because a lot of Lua's foot guns are like, we have a mental model of how programming languages are supposed to do things, and Lua just kind of doesn't, or tweaks them in a tiny way that blows you up, right? So maybe the kids who don't have any programming experience would have really enjoyed Lua, and then the rest of their lives they would wonder what's up with this weird zero indexing thing, okay? Anyway, that's how it goes, maybe. All right, so Postmortem has been released. Again, if you're not used to this kind of an assignment, it's a really quick thing, okay? Don't worry about it too much. Just dump your brain, and the whole point is to get you thinking back in time so you can get the most educational value out of all this, these last 3-4 months, as possible, okay? You actually, I know some of you want to forget like homework 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, but you actually don't, okay? Even if it's painful, looking back is part of that iterative process so that everything goes better next time, okay? All right. I got a story for you, okay? The final lecture in any course is kind of a weird one. What's the point? The semester is finished. Why don't I just say, see ya? Okay, I'll see you later. You get your physical rewards, which, by the way, the physical rewards are very close to you right now. You don't know where they are. They're hidden, okay? But soon they will reveal themselves, don't worry. And so when it comes to like, what do you talk about in a final lecture, typically we go a little bit more meta, all right? And I really like to tell stories. I'm a pretty private person, but I do want to tell you a little bit more about my history and why this topic really matters to me and why I think what you're doing could really matter to people in the future. Okay? There are so many engines up here. One of them is really, really special to me, though, and I want to explain to you exactly why. It's story time. I think I may have told you this before, but I want to see if you remember. Does anyone know the first game that I ever played? The game that got me into this mess.
Final Fantasy VII.
No. Oh, man. It's too much text. Way too much text for my age. I played my first game in, I think, 1999, which would have made me like 7 or so. Yeah.
Fire Red.
Fire Red? No, not quite, but that was an early one, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't read that game either. Like, it took a while before I could really make progress in Pokemon Red. Yes?
Mario 64.
Super Mario 64. No, that was my friend's first game, and I was so jealous. I would go over to his house to play it. Nothing like it. Anyone? Any final guesses? So the answer is a rival to Super Mario 64, actually. Sonic? Not quite. My grandmother had a Sega Genesis behind her TV. So I would actually go behind her big TV. It wasn't that big, where there was a super small TV, and I would play the Sonic games on Genesis. It was a good time. That's right. So I've talked about it a few times during this course, and there's a reason. When I say that 2-hour interview, I watched it all the way through at like 3 a.m. You remember that? Like there's a little bit of extra work going on there that now maybe makes sense. When I hear people talk about exactly how that game was made, it's pretty personal, not just a cool technical story. By the way, which games did you grow up with? Because I believe most of you are Zoomers at this point, and I'm an old millennial, crusty. Yes.
I played the Activision remake of Battlezone 98.
Battlezone 98. I've never heard of it. Cool. Yes.
I was very much at Arbor Games, Flash Games, also.
Oh yeah. Congregate, Newgrounds.com.
Uncharted Sonic.
Uncharted,
Yes, Sonic.
number 1 or 2?
2.
2. That's a heck of a game to start with. It's kind of all downhill from there.
I play a lot of Pokemon and like rhythm games like
Guitar Hero, Rock Band, fantastic, fantastic. You know, all of you were started playing games when 3D was like well established. I started playing games when it was in that weird hybrid zone where your game would be barely 3D. Kind of 3D, half your objects would be 2D sprites angled toward the camera to look 3D maybe. Okay, yes?
We had a lot of Kirby on the Game Boy Advance and Halo 2.
Kirby, Game Boy Advance, I remember playing that a lot. I did not play Halo. It was not an Xbox guy until the 360, yes?
I'm not sure which was first, but Pro Skater 2 and Pokemon Fire Red.
Tony Hawk, big part of my childhood as well. Really quickly, Ravi?
The oldest game I remember playing is
Which one? Club Penguin. That has a lot of history. There are documentaries coming out on Club Penguin these days. Okay, final one. Yep.
One of the earliest ones I remember is the first Portal game.
First Portal. Fantastic game.
Not old enough to solve the puzzles, but I tried.
No. Yeah. That game's a bit tough. Especially toward the end when you feel like, am I supposed to be doing this and like breaking the game? Anyway, Crash Bandicoot. I got lucky. I think a lot of us got lucky from what it sounds like. A lot of very good games we grew up playing. Of course, the first game you ever play is always going to be a great game to you. But this is what it looked like. It was one of the first 3D platformers. And like platformers were all the rage at that time, right? In the 90s, that was the main genre. First-person shooters would emerge and begin to take over. But no one had really made a game like this. This looks very standard, but just the idea of like, we're going to have a camera that follows you in 3D, but sometimes it'll shift angles to help you out, was a wild concept, okay? And if you play this game, you're seeing a lot of firsts, okay? A lot of very difficult challenges being solved. A lot of tech challenges, a lot of math challenges to make all this efficient, and also like a lot of design challenges. Like Andy, Gavin, Jason, Rubin, that was pretty much the entire team, and they didn't know like what was going to work. Because Mario 64, they saw like one image of it in like a trade magazine, and they knew that was their main rival, okay? Anyway, when I show you this interview, this clip, right, from earlier in the semester, like, there's a reason I'm showing that. It's kind of personal to me, okay? When I was a kid, I was really young. I played this on a tube TV, and you see that there's like a crab. There's like a crab just over the hill here, okay? I would spend half an hour just standing on the beach here because I was too afraid of the crab. It's going to crab me, okay? So I would just kind of hang out on the beach and jump on the boxes, and then I would reset the game and I'd just do it again because I didn't want to deal with the crabs. They were too scary, okay? But it was incredible, right? I was super into cartoons. There was a lot of SpongeBob in my my early days, a lot of Rugrats, stuff like that. Everyone forgets about Cat Dog, very sad. But it was like a cartoon I could direct, and I was super enamored as soon as my father brought it home on the PlayStation. We could never get very far. I was no good. My father was no good. But we did eventually get through it. And what was really interesting to me was I could play through the game and make things happen. I could change the outcome. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they wouldn't. But I could never create new things. Like if I wanted to go to the ice level, like there is no ice level in Crash. Like if I want to jump around in snow, that could only ever happen in my head unless I found a cheat code or something, or I found some hidden content. I couldn't create any content. I could only explore it. That wouldn't really stop me, though, and I do have fairly vivid memories of being in my bunk bed. This isn't actually me, but for our purposes, it is 7, 8-year-old me in 1999. And I remember I would go to bed, and I would kind of try and simulate in my head like what it would be like. So in my dreams, I could still make that content, but I'd wake up and then it's all gone. It kind of stinks. Okay? So one day, I got this idea that maybe there was something at Best Buy, because I started to see some games that like had little bits of like you could customize your character, right? That's kind of like making a game. That's crazy, right? So I asked my mom, like, does Best Buy have anything to like make a game? And that was pretty confusing. I didn't want to play a game. I wanted to like make a game that I could then play. And she actually went. In 1999, there were not many options, okay? Very few options. You know that from our very first lecture, okay? Can anyone guess what she found? Because she found something. The people, she had to ask, like, not the Geek Squad, because they didn't exist, but, like, the techies there actually had an idea for her. Anyone know what she found? Which engine did she find? Yes. No, not Flash. What else did she find? Any idea?
This could be totally wrong. I don't know why, but The Sims?
The Sims? Nope, not quite. She found RPG Maker, a super early version. And what's wild is I looked this up last night. There was no English official port of RPG Maker. There was an unofficial fan patch of RPG Maker 1995 at that time. I would have asked. And so the techies were like going to hook her up with some really crazy stuff, which would have been pretty cool. I declined because I wanted to make video games, and I didn't know what an RPG was. So what RPG? Like, what's that? No, I don't know. I want to make games. It's kind of funny now, and kind of a diss too. RPGs aren't really my favorite genre. Anyway, it would have been fun if we got it. Okay. It's 2003, so basically I gave up, right? It didn't work out. I gave up for a few years at least. I'm kind of just getting into middle school. It's 2003, Sashaball Middle School over near Clarkston. And the World Wide Web is actually becoming a thing. And I'm grabbing my internet browser. I hear the dial-up connection, right? And I can't remember what browser I used, probably Internet Explorer. And I found something. There was a Google search result for a thing called Game Maker by a guy named Mark Overmars. Okay? And here he is. He is currently, he's got this big website where he catalogs and takes beautiful, really beautiful photos of bugs. He's kind of an insect guy these days. Okay? So that's pretty cool. But he, around that time, I think was actually a professor, and he actually started working on this tool called Game Maker. And it looked like this. And I made my first ever game, like right there, in like my early days in middle school. So, would you like to play it? Okay, well, let me say I was not a super smart kid growing up, and I was definitely not a prodigy. You'll see that in a sec. This is a game that is 2-player until you hit level like 5, and then it's 4-player from then on. So it's a pretty wild game. So I need 2 players. Mathurin, Jonah. Yep.
That's crazy. You still have this.
Yeah, I know. It took me like 90 minutes last night to find these. I found my first game ever and my third game ever. Okay.
Where did you find them?
I had,
Flash drives?
yes, flash drives, and I had I think wisely, like in 2018, I dumped one of my first ever website, which had links to the game, and I put them into a Google backup. So anyway, here we go. We're not going to play very long. Okay, it's Wasta and arrow keys. Okay.
Let's do it. I need your illustrations. Oh, the staircase. I saw it. Oh my god, cooking. Oh, I'm not cooking. Oh, I also not cooking. There was some hero foot there. Oh, gap is tiny. Okay, this is like super meat boy. It goes up. Oh my. How much no. Okay. Wait. He's mad. Oh, that bounced. So, I'll do better with this. No, wait. Is he gonna come back? Oh, he's gonna come back. Should we go another? I think we go one. Yeah, we go. So it's split now. Oh, wait. Oh, no.
Okay, good enough. All right, good job. Well done. Thank you. So all my 494 students are thinking this. Awesome. There could some guidance recommendations we could make in here. Also, the game has a ton of weighting. Anyway, but it was fun. It was really great, actually. It was fantastic. I remember those early days. The summer would come, and I would just sit there just for hours and hours. It used drag and drop, so I wasn't doing any textual programming. I wouldn't do that for a few more years until high school. Visual Basic was kind of my first textual programming language, followed by ActionScript 2 and then 3. It was amazing. Like, I could make the games and I could watch people play levels, and some of these levels are pretty evil, but I'd get to watch the reaction from my friends, from my family who would play the game. And I could take them on flash drives to school, and I could usually get them on to the computers, and people would tell me they were super hard all the time, and they couldn't get past level 2 or 3. But it was amazing, right? And any ideas I had, I could try. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick look at my third game just to show you what kind of ideas were in my weird head back in middle school. This is a game called Super Squirrel, which is appropriate for this town.
Wonderful!
So I didn't know how to program a ladder where you could like go up or down. So I made a ladder that only lets you go up and automatically. So I drew a little up arrow in the ladder. So that's how it went. Anyway, yeah, that Super Squirrel game, like, yeah, there are things in that game that I actually still like. Some of my best bosses, if you can believe it, even to this day. I need to get better at bosses. Anyway, Like, you can see, I just spent enormous amounts of time on this and doing this, learning programming. Through this, I discovered I liked programming and not just game dev. Okay? I met people online who would try and do art for me. It was really just really great stuff. And it meant a lot to me. In a small way, right? It's not much, right? But I kind of owe it for this and for this and for all of these, right? The game engine was a really great outlet for me, allowed me to finally get the ideas out of my head. Now, I couldn't usually execute them, but at least I could try. And I did get better at some things. I never got much better at art. Maybe that's a little bit debatable, but it was more than just a game to entertain me for a while. Like, it gave me a whole new world to explore. And I really, really appreciate that these days. Okay? Anyway, here's the takeaway I want for you. We make games to entertain people, but when you can make an engine for others, you can make them free. You can really let them explore themselves. You can get their ideas out of their head in a way that a simple game really can't. Right? A well-designed game can get people to ask themselves interesting questions, but you make a good engine, suddenly people can help others do that. People can get their ideas out there into the world. I owe a lot to this guy, not just my hairstyle. Okay? I owe Mark a lot, and I really hope he knows that. He is not active on LinkedIn. I tried sending him a message. Maybe in a few years he'll see it. But yeah, what a guy. What a guy. And he did this. He solved all these hard problems before this was even a thing. Okay? And the executables that his program helped me make, they still run. They run like decades later. Okay? Amazing, amazing. Anyway, 4 months ago, I showed you these slides, okay? I was trying to hype you up. I was trying to convince you that this is the moment for game engine developers, okay? The squeeze is beginning. Hey, thank you. The squeeze was beginning, right? Unity had just made a big mistake. September 2023, what did they do? Remind us. They stepped in it.
Install fee.
Ooh-wee. They stepped in it. Install fee, okay? It doesn't matter. If you got this free indie game, that thing's getting installed, you're getting charged, okay? I think there was some nuances on that, but everyone disliked this policy, okay? Well, I'm sure it's just the result of a maligned CEO, okay? Right? Right? Uh-oh. Things haven't been super good for Unity since. In fact, they've been pretty bad for a while. Okay? Unity is burning cash. They're laying off people. It's not enough. And the squeeze is not over. Okay? The situation remains bad. And this is not a function. That policy that came out is not a function of a bad CEO. It's a function of a company that is in trouble. Okay? And they need to make some coin. And they're not going to get that from the money tree. Okay? Who are they going to get that from? Who's about to get squeezed again? This isn't the end. It's you, okay? You're going to be the ones getting squeezed. 494 students, I'm sorry. You're going to get squeezed here, okay? It's coming, all right? There are new versions. Unity 6 is rolling out, I think. And who knows what's going to be in it, all right? Well, hey, okay, there's good news, all right? The other dominant player in game engines is Unreal. All right, Unreal, is that a public company? It's not. It is not a public company. The founder owns Unreal, okay? Tim Sweeney would never betray us, right? Right? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg owns Meta, and he's never led us astray, okay? Well, something to note about Unreal and Epic Games. When you ask who owns Unreal, right, they're not a public company. And so the usual players don't own Unreal, but that doesn't mean there aren't a lot of very big influences on Unreal, right? Now, I joke a little bit, put Tim Sweeney in this little heart shape. I am a Tim Sweeney fan, but that doesn't mean we always will be. That doesn't mean he won't make mistakes or decide that it's time to retire. He wants some extra coin, okay? It's one person, and if he gets hit by a bus, things could get real weird real fast, okay? Who are the other owners of Unreal? And this is very important because you can see this is getting a little close, okay? It's getting a little close.
Disney recently made a big investment.
Okay, let me skip. Here we go. Yes, you're right. They carved out a little bit of Unreal for themselves. Tencent is one of the big investors in Unreal. They own a very big chunk. Yeah, it's been a bit rough for them too, right? They might be wondering when they can start making a little bit more money on Unreal Engine. Okay, Sony, the same company that's been doing a lot of layoffs lately, might soon begin to wonder if they can, get a little bit more revenue going with Unreal. That'd be just great for them, right? Kirbiki, Lego. Okay, that is the holding company that apparently owns Lego, and they know how to make some money, definitely. And who knows when they might get some really interesting new ideas for the Unreal Engine. All right. Now I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here. I do love myself some big companies, but it's a bit spooky. Okay, just a handful of entities control one of the world's most important engines, right? And Disney shows up, okay? Disney, certainly very good at making money, and they just made, I think, 1.5 billion stake. So who knows if the founder even still has full control, over 50% of all those shares, all right? In fact, this is actually like a fairly big deal. When the war in Ukraine broke out, Russia invaded in 2022, like there were some headlines in some interviews where Vladimir Putin spoke about, like, a little bit nervous about losing our access to game engines. And with these engines, that might not just be Russia, that could be anyone. Anyone could lose access if the right circumstances arrive, and I think that would be really, really sad. Game Maker was a big deal for me, but if Unreal and Unity disappear tomorrow or become the domain of only well-endowed, very high-resource organizations, what stories are we going to miss out on? Right? Who's not going to find their career path like I did? It's a little bit spooky, okay? So, we're going to need some alternatives. Does anyone know of any cool recent engines to hit the community? Anyone? Well, I know of a few. And again, there are a lot, actually. But I'm just going to name a few that were available when I started making these slides early on, like yesterday. How about a big new engine? There's this really cool dev, Michael Dick. Anyone know that guy? Yeah? An integrated editor. Now, this is the task where I said to myself, and then my staff told me, and then like Nate Hainish and I think some of the other devs around here told me, like, no way, this is like the ridiculous, crazy, cracked student. Only the craziest students are going to try this. But here it is. Look at that. It's even got a preview box where you can kind of see the game. You can see all your actors in here. You can see the breakdown. You can see your scenes, your images. That's the Asset Explorer. You've got, okay, the layout's a little bit funky. Yeah. It's very flavorful layout. But we've got our scenes in here, and we've got our rendering config. We got some controls for starting a game and pausing it, I think. You can see what actors you've got. You can add new actors. I think you can even like give those actors new components, right? And I think, yeah, you can hit play and now you can actually move things around. You can see how your scene's going to look crazy. And I think you can even edit Lua in here, right? Create new components. All of this is nuts. But by the way, Michael's not the only one who did this. I was seeing new engines, like more full integrated editors rolling through in the exhibition channel, and they were awesome. Which one?
Arnav said looks good, and I said it was a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, and if you made that, you know, okay, you know, it's the kind of task where it's like, I'm not doing that. No way. I'm gonna take the whole summer to do that, maybe. But here you did that in like 2 weeks. A bunch of you did that. Really impressive results, too. And each has a slightly different flavor. Very cool. What about online multiplayer? Dan Sage, you here? Where are you? Bingo. No big deal. Just online multiplayer, all right? Crazy. You know, I've been thinking about making a whole course about this topic, and you go and make this in 2 weeks. And I think I said on Discord, maybe I'll just have you make the course. Sounds pretty good to me. But here it is, and we've got and the server. So there's actually 3 instances running here, 2 clients, and then you can flip a client easily into server mode, right?
Yeah, it's 2 binaries. In the server, completely headless.
Okay. Yep, the server's headless. That's a big deal.
So I started the server. Here I'm opening 2 clients. Now, what you'll notice is that we're not in the game right away. So one of the things I added this week is support for basically single-player scenes. So when you start the client, this is the menu screen. Not much going on in terms of menu screens, but let's press enter to join. So right here, this client has joined the server. We can see some debug output from the server going on. And it looks like we're in the lobby and waiting for the player, so the other player is going to join, and we're in the game right away. And so you can see in this game, you can move around, you can shoot lasers, and I can shoot this guy.
And you've got like different UI for the different characters. You got single player scenes like readying up and getting ready in menus, and then you've got the multiplayer scenes. You've got, I think, like actor replication. So when you instantiate an actor on one machine, it's going to go to the others. Did you get the eventbus.publish going?
Yeah, that's synced as well.
Dang. All right. I can't wait to grade all of these. There are features I didn't even see. And a Lua API to expose it all, I think. And it's crazy. Okay. Fantastic work. And this is, it just keeps getting better and better, right? Arnav, with the 3D multiplayer. 3D, this Vulkan, right?
No, it's web GPU.
Oh, web GPU, right. Yes. And I actually, this is running in the browser, okay? So we got 3D, we got browser. It's like you combined 2 tasks. And very impressive stuff. And I was seeing there were some other 3D experiments in there as well. Very cool projects. I saw super cool render just before we started. And that's not the half of it. We got crazy particle systems, right? Super beautiful GIFs. We got multi-threading going on. We got accessibility features, which I don't think I've seen built into a game engine ever, which is super cool. We got crazy ideas like webcam support, so you can get your face on a character, controller support, skeletal animation was a very popular one. I have to say, you're all knocking out these weird, crazy features, ambitious features, like it's nothing. And, right, I don't like to flex or brag, but I think thinking with Nikhil and Ravi, like when you draw up an assignment, like, okay, we're going to if we give them 2 weeks at the end of the semester at their custom feature, we're like, will they like that? Will it work? And like our hardest tasks, I think I saw someone like change over to Python. Yes, Python, and it looked fantastic, and the APIs are all there, and it works. It's completely absurd, right? I feel like I have the most OP students on campus right now. These are the kind of things that you're like, hey, our game engine, like it needs, oh gosh, like we need to integrate Python. And so I can't give that to my junior devs or my interns. Like I don't want to give that to any intermediate devs. I'm going to go to like my most senior devs to have them add this super important feature quickly and do it right and thoughtfully so it's easy to use. And like these features are just flowing in like it's nothing, right? So it actually, these last 2 assignments did actually go exactly the way we drew them up. And I'm so, so happy and I'm very proud of you all for doing that. I think, again, and I'm going to say this a billion times, like you're a teacher, you only have so much time with the students. Your main goal is not necessarily to get information across. That's almost the main goal. The main goal is actually to get them hooked on the topic. Because if you can get them hooked on the topic, and this happened to me, they will learn way more when they're not even with you. Then you don't even have enough time to teach them, okay? They'll learn way more on their own. And so, like, when your hands go up thinking, yeah, I might do some summer stuff. Again, you don't have to, right? I'm not going to be, my heart's not going to break if you don't do anything. But, like, the OP, the power level in this room, I think is going to go through the roof during the summer, okay? That's just the opinion I have. In particular, when you end up at jobs, like, I discovered a couple more people didn't tell me that they were going to Roblox or whatever, getting cool jobs. Tell me when you go do cool things in general, okay? Otherwise, I don't know. But when you get to a job, show them your engine, right? They might realize what they've got. They've got some incredibly talented junior engineers who really are kind of more like senior engineers, in my opinion. Like, they might give you some really interesting tasks wherever you end up working. Like, that's just, it was a good day. I was up till, like, again, 5 a.m. is kind of I stay up till 5 a.m. a lot because at 5 a.m. I say I got 3 hours till I have to wake up. So anything not finished literally just gets cut. It's good enough at that point. I'm sitting there. I'm not even feeling the hours. And I'm not feeling them right now because I'm just watching these cool projects roll in like it's nothing. And it was just a mood. It's just a vibe, It's like it all worked. It was all worth it. So anyway, you really are the right people for the job. If we need cool new engines, if we need engines that are currently open source to get more contributions, I'm not going to say Godot, I'm going to say Bevy this time. If we need Bevy to get some more power and start taking more market share, we got the right people for the job, all right? Because, and this slide took me a long time, you know some serious engineering, okay? Like, you all have experience with at least one beginner game engine. You remember it from the beginning. All those weeks ago, all those assignments ago, came into this class thinking it was going to be easy because you knocked out the first assignment. It was like nothing. Maybe you even got bored. How many of you chose Game Maker? Okay, classic. I don't feel much attachment to Game Maker these days because it feels and looks a lot different, okay, than when I was using it. Click Team Fusion, we had like one brave soul use that one. Okay, Five Nights at Freddy's fan, probably. Bingo. All right. MIT Scratch. Okay. And then I forgot about Construct. Sorry if you used it. That's a pretty cool one. The minimalistic engines, right? Like, you don't want all these weird things that Unity gives you, this UI. Get it out of here. I'm going to write my own component framework. I just want an update loop and a draw function, please. Okay? Pygame, Monogame, love 2D, Monogame, famous for Celeste. A lot of people use Monogame these days. It uses C#. Unity to Monogame pipeline seems pretty strong. Integrated engines, Unity, Unreal, Godot, and then we had just a couple people choose Pico 8. Good for you. It's kind of a cool little engine. But then we got away from that, right? And we started to learn things like SDL. That is a pretty serious package. It can do a lot of stuff. It is used all over the place. Steam uses SDL. You know why? Because they don't want to have to maintain all the weird, like, input-related stuff, and they don't want to have to deal with all the operating system stuff. They do a bit, but SDL is just like a rock-solid foundation. Everyone uses it. When there's a new weird controller on the market, SDL is going to jump in there and make sure it works with the DDR dance pad. Okay? Rapid JSON. Big, cool Tencent project. Pretty, it's used pretty popular in C++ world if you're doing stuff with JSON. I think I had someone, was it Ravi in our team chat, was like, we should have used What was the language again? I forgot what it's called. I'm tired. YAML. Yeah, I might have chosen YAML if we had another shot at it. But JSON's pretty cool. Very good language. Hey, over the summer you can switch to YAML. Okay, how about that? Box2D, the famous Box2D game engine. Like there were moments, like actually throughout most of my career in like middle school, elementary school, high school, like you told me like, hey Austin, why don't you just go take Box2D for a spin? You know what that would look like? That would look like me downloading some headers. I'm like, what are these .h things? Like, what are these .cpp? What do I do? Okay, Visual Studio, but like it's not building. Okay, oh, I'm getting weird, like undefined reference errors. I don't know what's going on. Okay, after 2 hours, I give up. Like that's how most of the attempts for me would go. Whenever it's like, yeah, let's go use a hardcore C++ dependency, right? Hopefully, and I think it's true. Like by now, it's hopefully not a big deal for most of you. Okay, in general, and especially once you get used to CMake. It's going to be like, yeah, I got to like tell it where to look for the headers. I got to tell it which headers I want. Same thing with libraries. Where do you look for libraries and which ones do you want? Boom, it's working. You see a certain error and you're like, that's not scary. I just know that my linker in particular is messing up, which means I got to look at my library paths and, oh, yep, I messed up my path and now it's working. Okay. Or my DLL, because it builds, it runs, and then it crashes immediately on run. Oh, that's a DLL issue. Right? Clearly, oh, I'm not copying DLLs to the right place. They're over here and my executable's over here, right? So hopefully you have a better feel for how to integrate anything now, which is really, really useful. And actually, surprisingly, a lot of teams, a lot of C++ teams, especially at smaller shops, like struggle with this actually. Like their dependencies, they'll skip because no one on their team could figure out how to make it build. Anyway, Box2D, right? The concepts within, this idea that we're going to have a world to simulate everything. Some body's in there, but the body doesn't have information so much about like what shape of the collision there is. So we're going to need fixtures and shapes. But wait, does it have friction or does it have no friction? Well, we put that information not on the shape, but on the fixture, right? So there's this nice hierarchy of just providing more and more information so that the collisions can actually happen, okay? It just kind of makes sense once you get rolling with it. But there's even more engineering than this, right? Because you learned an entire, like, pretty hollowed language, okay? Lua is a language that not a ton of people learn, but everyone has heard of and everyone kind of wants to know, especially in the game space. Tables, Lua bridge, metatables, okay? One indexing, all the nasty foot guns that won't shoot you anymore because you've got some experience with Lua. You know, give it a few months and you'll have to relearn them probably, unfortunately, but you know, not a big deal. I have a feeling this group is just pretty good at learning things pretty quickly. That's what it seems, because you really had to do that. Composition, you got to see the Panda, Ice Snake lecture again, some of you for the third time, I think, which is just really great. You can bring it up like just routinely now. It's really good. Maybe in your whiteboard interview, you'll be drawing an ice panda and an ice snake, maybe, to explain why multiple inheritance isn't very good. Anyway, composition. Dry, this idea that we don't want to have duplication, you get blown up. How many of you, like, at some point, and this is something I want to read about in your postmortems, how many of you were like, oh, I got, like, these two functions that are the same thing, and, like, I use them in slightly different cases, but they've started to diverge, and now the code is just a mess. I forget which one I'm in, okay? That's a dry issue, okay? You really, when you've got similar logic, you want to let things flow through that one path if possible and not have multiple paths that get desynced. You fix a bug in one place but not the other. You get blown up, right? Lifecycle functions, this idea that you are an engine developer, right? You give freedom to others by providing what they need, the features they need. You're going to call the functions at the right moment on their behalf to empower them, right? You are the foundation that all of your adorable new game designers stand upon to make their dreams and their ideas come true, right? You do all the hard stuff, okay? The hardest stuff, the hardest challenges, you knock them out. to let your fellows, your peers, move forward. It's a pretty selfless thing. It's kind of a beautiful thing. In order to submit in this course, you had to learn version control, okay, if you didn't know it already. I actually had, I kid you not, I had big companies around here. You can guess which ones. Tell me, hey, Austin, like we had people apply from your class, but like they didn't know Git, and like they barely knew C++. And I'm thinking like, wait, that's not possible. Like we do Git in 494, we do Git in like, 440, but actually not really, because if you're on the team and maybe you don't do a ton, or maybe you're not committing that much stuff, you don't really know Git. Well, here, like you at least have to be able to clone stuff and push stuff and make commit messages. And, there you go, right? And so everyone is guaranteed to get at least some very basic stuff in this course. That was not the case in my team-based courses in 494 and 440. Build systems, Visual Studio, Xcode, Make. You are now experts compared to most people, I think, in that you know all three to a certain extent. Okay, you can navigate their UI, at least in a basic way, and you kind of, hopefully, can feel the common patterns that they all have, which is really important. You now at least know about the existence of CMake, the idea that, people got really annoyed having to deal with all three of these, and so we made one more standard, and now there are 4 things we need to know, right? So that's a relevant XKCD in there somewhere. C++ coding standards. Nate Hanish's talk in here was really fantastic. And again, when someone talks to you about coding standards, this is the important part. It's going to be different at every studio, every team you end up in. The important part is that you understand the rationale for why the team adopts a particular standard. And the second super important part is that you just accept the teams, okay? And you can argue every once in a while, maybe you want to update some standards, but you want to be synchronized with your team members, and the rationale under the hood is the important part. And maybe if you ever start your own team, you will be able to grab the best standards that you think are going to be good for your situation, okay? You've learned a little bit about API design. A lot of you are designing your own Lua APIs to interact with your new custom features the last 2 weeks. Smart pointers. How many of you have never really used like STD shared pointer before this course? I don't think we teach it in the other courses very much. Maybe a bit of 482. I don't know. Maybe it's been updated since I took it. Profiling. This idea that sometimes, oh my gosh, I managed to shrink my struct by 18 bytes. We got a performance win. Let's go. You run it, 20% performance loss. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't jive with data-oriented programming that I know. And that's just how it goes sometimes. There's so much going on under the hood. The compilers will take your code and do crazy things. And so profiling really is what you got to do. Okay? Even if you think you've got an easy, obvious win, you got to get in there and profile it just to make sure. Okay? Static and inline. I think I've told you before, but I'm haunted by hearing from Mark Maratea, a fantastic AAA developer from U of M, telling me when I was interviewing with EA that like none of those UMich students know what static means. And you don't have to want to use static. If you don't know what static means, there's a very good chance you don't have a good feel for what instance variables really are. Okay? And if you see static, knowing that that's not an instance variable, the implications of that are a pretty big deal. Okay? Anyway, you now know what some of these things mean, or at least have a much better feel for them. The idea of composite keys. Okay? The idea that you can kind of create a data type, jam some data in there to, for instance, hash much more efficiently your location. And speaking of hashing, spatial hashing. This idea that in 3D space, there are data structures, there are techniques you can use to really speed up searches through that space. Okay? There's also this really interesting notion, and we don't talk about it a whole lot here, but there's this really interesting notion that keeps coming up. If you can add constraints onto your engine, you could dramatically speed things up, right? If you can say, my characters can only stand on the integer grid, oh, nice. Okay, we can go very fast. We can do collisions very fast. Okay? But then again, remember, the whole point of being an engine developer is to solve the hard problems and thus free our colleagues to explore and pursue whatever ideas they might have. Okay? I remember an interview that Satoru Iwata had. I think Satoru Iwata was talking, a Nintendo president. He was a programmer. He was a legendary programmer on Pokemon Red and Blue, and I think the sequels like Gold and Silver. He also hopped in. I think he was CEO at the time. He hopped in to help Nintendo finish and bug fix Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like the president's jumping in here to help us finish our game, everyone. That's pretty cool, in the trenches, right? He said in the interview, and it was really funny, he said, I'm somewhat of a unique president because I'm a programmer, and as a result, a programmer can't come to me and say what's possible or impossible. I know what's possible, and I know what's impossible, and so the programmer can't deny the designer. If the designer wants something to happen, we know it's possible, and the programmer has to just go make it happen. Okay? It's a bad feeling to, and I've heard this before, like in my work at EA. Like, it's a pretty bad feeling to have a designer say, well, I guess we can't do my idea because the engine devs don't think they can do it. The technology isn't good enough. We can't make the feature work. It's broken. So I guess my design is out the window and we have to change, the vision. Had all these great ideas, but now we just got to go for a boring kind of genre, just genre template, pull off the shelf, and we'll make a very boring game, I guess. And that's really sad, okay? This is all just to say that, remember, every ounce of effort you put in magnifies everyone who stands on your shoulders. There's this notion in academia, if you've ever gone to Google Scholar, you've probably seen the phrase, stand on the shoulders of giants, right? It's this notion that in academia, it's supposed to be collaborative. You make a tiny little discovery over here, and someone else, maybe on the other side of the world, finds your paper, cites it, and actually that's their breakthrough. They didn't know that it was possible to do this little algorithm in O of n time instead of O of n squared. And so they're able to take that little win that you had and it turns into a big win for them, but then you use their discovery to create another big win, and that's how human knowledge expands. That's why citations are so important, and why publishing is such a big deal in academia. Okay? So anyway, but there's more, okay? There's more engineering because we missed a lot of stuff. STL containers, we went over a lot of the 281 stuff. We actually applied them quite often, right? You have a very good feel for why you would choose a map versus an unordered map. You know what? It took me a long time as a C++ developer to know that there was an unordered version of the map. And I'm like, oh, what? It's just like, I never care about ordering in this stuff. And I just get free performance? It's crazy fast now? What?
It took me until this class to remember that there was an ordered version of the map.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Data-oriented design. One of my regrets in the course, I don't have that many. Okay, off by 1 pixel errors. That's an obvious one. That's number 1, spot by mile. I wish we could have had a little bit more time for data-oriented design, but I do think it might have crushed us. Okay? I think in the future semesters we'll have a bit more. But at least you know about data-oriented design, at least the most basic principles of it. Yeah, hopefully it makes sense to you now, right? We don't want to grab that huge, big object if we only want a little piece of it. So instead, we're going to store our data, a little bit more database-y approach, and that's going to let us fill our cache much better. It's going to allow us to move and iterate much faster, and boom, there you go. Coroutines. We talked a little bit about that. That will probably get the axe in future semesters, if I'm being honest. Homework 7 lasted forever. I think 4 weeks, actually. One of those was spring break. And we needed extra content. Coroutines are very cool, though. Okay? You can actually support them as a first-party, kind of first-class feature of your engine if you want to. I think some people actually did do that. AABB, right? Not a super crazy complex algorithm, but it's a nice little thing to have in your back pocket, especially because even when you're making games that look very luxurious and advanced, like sometimes you just need a box. Sometimes a box is good enough, okay? And it gets the job done. It's pretty fast. You also, finally getting away from the engineering here, hopefully you have a little bit more context and knowledge and a bit of ideas about how engines have evolved and what the landscape really looks like. This idea that you don't have to supplant Unity or Unreal, it would be cool if you did, but you don't have to do that. There are a lot of engines out there, some of them proprietary, some of them off the shelf. Why you make that decision, right? You have a feel for ASCII texture games, adventure games. How many of you put that text adventure on your portfolio? Anyone? Okay, all right, let's go. Okay, yeah, some people are really into that. And it's good stuff. You got a feel for modding. You also have a bit more of a feel for licenses, right? You know why the GPL, spooks people, okay? Wait, why does the GPL spook people? Yes? Yes, that's right. And what does the GPL force you to do if you use it? Yeah, it forces you to open source all your stuff, okay? This is to say that when you see GPL, you're thinking this is a tool, this is not something I put in my final binary or even link to. So I can't remember if it's called the AGPL or the LGPL. I think it's LGPL. But GPL horrified enough people that people came up with the LGPL. You know what that is? Okay, it's the GPL, but it's slightly looser. If you link against our software, you're okay. You don't need to, it doesn't infect your code. You don't need to make it public, but you cannot include it and build it by source. You can only link against it now, okay? Anyway, pretty interesting stuff to think about. It does have a huge impact on software. Remember Stepmania. The team was like, oh no, we really want to release like a commercial arcade game because that sounds awesome, right? Have any of you seen a Stepmania cabinet? It's usually like there's DDR, but if DDR was too expensive, you find the Stepmania cabinet or Beatmania or something like that at the arcade. Anyway, they apparently went and found every member, every contributor, and got them all to agree to switch to a different license, which any of the Wolverine Soft studio members know is like a hellish endeavor, okay? Because there's one person who, like a year ago, went to live in Alaska, okay? And they're living in a cabin in the woods, and we have to track this person down and get in writing that they're okay with it. And if we can't, none of our rest, 99% of the other members of the effort doesn't matter, okay? So we have to get everyone. Anyway, in all those game engines of the day, and there were a lot, okay? Mugen, right? Mugen, I like to think the M stands for Michigan, right? Because it was made here. RPG Maker, ID Tech 1, Crystal Tools. Crystal Tools, I love telling that story because of like my history with Final Fantasy. I'll say if your first Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy 13 and mine was, that's a bit of a tough situation. And I have an engine to blame for that now. Okay, I know the story. Frostbite, right? Great Destruction, Source Engine, Classic, Ren'Py, Creation Engine, beloved Bethesda engine, all that nice Bethesda jank. UbiArt, Flash, Renderware, Roblox, Retro, Stepmania, Twine, Adventure Game Studio, Blender Engine, D&D, Mario. We're getting into the, like, is this really an engine category? But yeah, definitely, okay? Little Big Planet, Lightship, and Defold, okay? Like, that's a lot of engines. And I think maybe you ask, is it a little bit weird to have a bunch of trivia for these engines on our exam? And I say to you, it's not trivia. All of these engines have something very interesting or unique about them, about their history, about their workings, about their formation, their creation, that will tell you a lot, taken together, about the industry as a whole and how this software tends to be made and how it progresses, how it dies. Poor renderware. Okay, how did renderware go?
EA bought it, and then everybody was like, "No, we don't want this."
You could have just stopped at EA bought. But yeah, we pick on EA a lot, but I liked them. If I wasn't working here, I'd be there. They're a really good place to work. Sims 4 team was really great. But yeah, right? This idea that like you give up ownership. We were just talking about Tim Sweeney, and his ownership was almost gone. You give up ownership, you're rolling the dice. Sometimes that can go super well. Sometimes it does not. Not at all. So there's a lot of stuff that you've learned this semester, okay? I hope you can keep some of this in your head, but really you're not trying to memorize trivia here. You're trying to develop a feel for how history plays out, okay? How certain things work. The why is way more important than the specifics, okay? This is difficult stuff, all of it, okay? And I would say it took you 3 months, 4 months to learn this all. It didn't. And if you're a 440 student, you know what I'm about to say. What am I about to say, 440 students? Yes. That's right. It took you at least 4.5 years, probably, or 3.5 maybe. Because you can't even dream of taking this course and doing well until you've gotten through 281. 281 is tough, and that takes you a while to build up to. And before you go do programming, computer science at Michigan, you're probably going to do a bunch of high school stuff maybe, okay? You've been building up to this for a long time. You're going to walk outside and say, we need game engine developers. We need publicly available, good, high-quality engines for everyone. You're going to walk outside and just grab someone off the street to do that? I don't think so, okay? It takes a huge investment, okay, a lot of sacrifice to be able to do this stuff, okay? You look around the country, you look around the world, you look at MSU, they have an amazing program. You should consider them for grad school. They're really good. But they don't have this, okay? You go to prestigious universities. I don't think Carnegie Mellon has a course like this, right? I think I saw one at USC that looked vaguely like this, but also looked like it'd been shut down. They're not teaching it anymore, okay? Like you want new game engines, right? You want game engine devs to keep the public game engines going strong? This is it. You're what we got, okay? And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but only a little, okay? And so, I'm pretty optimistic still, all right? I'm pretty optimistic. You know, I owe my job in at least a tiny portion and much of my life to the fact that Mark Overmars, okay, took the hard challenges, okay? He wanted to do the hard stuff. He went out and said, there are no game engines. That's kind of crazy, but what if I just tried to make one? And he did, right? You think the challenges you face this semester are hard? Okay. He didn't have the dependencies that we used, right? He was deep. He was deep in the native operating system code, all right? Making it work. He had a really, really hard challenge. But thank goodness, right? Because, again, it's the nature of the engine developer to be selfless, right? Someone that you stand on their shoulders. And thank goodness their shoulders are so tough, right? Thank goodness Mark was so tough, all right? A quick recap. You started here, right? Super cool, very fun, kind of like a really cool kind of 281 style project. We made it expressive so you can mod it. We then introduced SDL. This was a tough one. This was your first real clash with a bunch of difficult to integrate dependencies. Okay? Advanced 2D engine. We're moving to the continuous world. This is homework 6. This is kind of the what is that in film? Like the lowest moment? What is that called? There's always in film. It's like the darkest hour. Okay? This was your darkest hour, but you climbed out and had a super cool homework 7 engine coming out of that. And then at the end here, these things are just looking crazy. A lot of these video footage you're showing me, like that looks like a 494 game, you know, in the first couple weeks of 494, right? So one question you should ask, a very pragmatic one, is what next, okay? You've got this physics-enabled 2D engine with your own secret sauce on it now, which is really great, but what do you do next? Well, that's up to you completely. but I do want to leave you with a few ideas, okay? And we're going to move kind of fast. There's some cool technologies out there you might consider. Lua-JIT. As it turns out, what we did, which is integrate Lua, the just general interpreter, the libraries, is actually kind of slow, okay? Lua-JIT is known as one of the fastest scripting projects out there. So if you want like a huge performance boost, hopefully for not that much work, Lua-JIT is something you might want to swap in. Ravi knows more.
There's something careful about this though, is that
Yep.
you cannot use JIT on the Xbox or on iOS or on web browsers. So if you're going to do that, you have to be careful.
What's wrong with Xbox? Sony's allowing this, but Nintendo allows this, but Xbox doesn't?
I don't know. I just know for sure. Xbox
Okay.
doesn't.
All right, I gotcha. Yeah, got to be a bit careful, okay? CMake, right? Of course, super powerful. This would be really good for your professional life, I think, especially if you continue to work on the engine. Move it over to CMake. You'll learn a lot. It'll make your life much easier. MGUI. Some of you used it for your final custom feature. A lot of industry houses use MGUI, and you can do powerful stuff with it. We're seeing like entire editors being made in MGUI, okay? Very impressive. Vulkan 3D. There is a new graphics upper-level CS course. It looks awesome to me, and I think it would be a pretty natural fit if you took your 2D engine and said, I'm going to make upgrades to my engine as I learn more about 3D rendering during a course like that. Okay? Not a bad idea. What about new knowledge? Well, there's this really great game engine series on YouTube I didn't know about. Someone pointed it out to me, I think, during the class. I don't know who this person is, but they got a very popular series of videos. My God, this is terrifying to me, and I just went through making this course, okay? Shaders. Oh, let's go, okay? 2D rendering, a Hazel custom, a custom scripting language. Wait, maybe? Actually, I don't know. No, that's the name of the engine. Frame buffers, other stuff, blah, 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 blah. Native scripting, camera, transform stuff, save dialogues, good stuff. Yes?
Yeah, he was what I used to make my first engine. He's awesome. He's also made a bunch of C++ tutorials for all sorts of advanced stuff.
Cool.
So
Yep. There you go. You can just watch that, get new features into your engine, okay? Very cool stuff. What else we got? We got 494. I heard that course is really great. 440, I heard, is really good too. In fact, yeah, I heard that there's not a... We're getting more and more enrollments, but I could always use some more. Hey, 440 is a really soft, lightweight course. You can pair it with anything. It's just really good stuff, okay? You can make a meal. It's like the assorted veggies of your meal. Yes?
I just want to say 440 got me my job, so need a job.
There you go. All right, there you go. Take 440, guaranteed job. Alex said it. Okay. The new graphics course. Okay, very cool stuff. Don't forget about our other game dev courses on campus. SI 311, game dev and UX. Professor Natalie Fang, fantastic. Pat 305, Professor Thompson, legendary course. I heard he has a new upper-level writing course for video game music. You got to take that if you need it. You're in the LSNA, you take that one. Education 333, Professor Fishman's fantastic course on games and learning. It's all about guidance in that course, as far as I can tell, which is a topic deserving of its own course. Pikuma, Game Engine Architecture. This is a really good online course. They do things a bit differently than us. They go straight to ECS and data-oriented programming. So we go toward Unity, they go toward Bevy, and so really cool stuff if you want to learn more about data-oriented programming. Communities, IGDA Ann Arbor, right? Build cool new stuff and show it off, okay? You can't forget to show it off. Inspire other people. Please do that, okay? Please, please, please. This will give you a lot of morale, okay? You just work on something on your own, never show it to anyone. You don't know if it's any good. You're not getting feedback, and you're going to get bored of it. You have to see other people be amazed, and you will rekindle your passion for whatever you're doing, okay? So keep that in mind. Eventually, this stuff is so cool, you take it to expos, cons, a little bit pricey, but soon you'll all have super awesome jobs. MDev, right? Local Midwestern conferences, and eventually I'm going to see you at GDC. I'm going to be clapping as you accept your Lifetime Achievement Award. It's going to be for your incredible new engine and great games, and I'm going to be so proud, okay? So do that stuff. I have one final anecdote before we close out the semester, okay? One final anecdote on difficulty, and this is something you've heard if you've taken 440, okay? Quick story time, 2015, I'm in San Francisco, I'm working at EA, and I go to a hackathon. It's the Samsung Gear VR. It's a new VR headset. You stick your phone on it, it's really great, okay? Except not really. There were $10,000 in prizes, all right? Let's win this thing, okay? Well, I ended up winning it. I ended up winning it with this right here. It's this VR game where you run through this field as a UFO drops crap on you, okay? And you have to run around the bricks and stuff. It's not that crazy, okay? Yeah, we do that to you when you touch the thing. So we make you puke, okay? I wouldn't do that these days, but I was just dumb in 2014 and 15. Anyway, I won the competition. You know why? Does this look like an incredible piece of software to you? It's not, all right? It's got some terrible decisions. You know why I won? I didn't have a single competitor. No one else could get the darn SDK to work. This was a 24-hour game jam. You know how long I had to make that game? 4 hours. You know why? Because all the rest of the time was spent getting their crappy SDK to actually run in Unity, okay? And all of my opponents were basically filtered by that problem, okay? I faced a very significant problem. It was a huge pain to debug and figure out what was going wrong, but that problem saved me, okay? The difficulty I chose is what made me win. All right, I won because the immature Gear VR ecosystem took down all of my competitors. You want to make an indie game today? It's super frictionless, easy. Grab Unity off the shelf, itch.io is right there, no filters, no nothing, no hard problems being solved. You know why everyone was super excited about No Man's Sky when it debuted? It's because it looked like this tiny team had solved one of the most difficult problems in procedural generation. They didn't quite solve it when it came out, but over time, they kind of did. Okay, that's why people got hyped. No one cares when you solve the easy problems, okay? Go out and find something hard. A quick other anecdote, Crash Bandicoot, The Interview. Attempting to create their first 3D platformer, Andy Gavin, Jason Rubin, go out there and they start running into hellish problems. You watch that 2-hour interview, you'll get a feel for what they were. They were nasty. Problems with the hardware, even though it was great hardware, Andy says. Big problems with the software. Okay, problems they didn't think they could fix until they did find a way. All right? They had so many problems. You know what they didn't have? Competition. Because every single week, they would kind of look at trade magazines, go to trade shows, and they kept struggling. It was really hard for them, right? A lot of pain, a lot of late nights. And they kept waiting for their competitors, their competition to scoop them. It's like Mr. Miyamoto is going to come out of nowhere with Mario 64. They did, but that was kind of their only competition, and it wasn't even on the PlayStation. So it wasn't competition in their domain. Okay, where are all the other 3D platformers? Where are they? It's an obvious thing to try. Why is no one competing with us? They realized, they made the connection, the difficult challenges they were facing, the pain they were enduring, and the nights, the long nights they were dealing with, those problems were the reason why, okay? Every other team couldn't deal with them, couldn't make it through, couldn't experiment and iterate their way to victory. But Naughty Dog was able to do so. This is a team, this is an approach that leads to game of the year after game of the year. There are lots of issues with overworking in game dev. Okay? It doesn't have to be that way. But no matter what, I recommend that you go and you find the hard problems. Okay? Find hard problems, try and solve them. And when you do so, realize what you're doing, what you're selflessly doing. You go solve those hard problems so that others can stand on your shoulders. You are freeing your colleagues to pursue what they want to pursue, okay? So never feel bad about that. It's going to feel bad, it's going to feel painful, but never feel bad about choosing the hard path, okay? All right. Thank you all so much for playing. It's been a great semester. You've done a wonderful job. This is a very hard course, and you did it, okay? But we have one more thing to denote your experience, okay? We've got one more little bit of business we have to take care of. There aren't very many. You can get more up here, but you're going to find some white slips of paper on the desk, like one per row, kind of. And yeah, you got to find it. There's a little white taped down piece of paper, probably right in front of you, okay? Find the piece of paper and get ready, because you'll know when to open it. Ready?
No.
All right, go ahead, open it up. This is proof, undeniable proof, that you won. You completed the course. Come up, get your stickers if there aren't any over there, okay? And well done. I have to leave very soon. The 494 showcase is literally like now. So I gotta go, but come get your stickers. I'll be around for another 3 minutes, okay? All right, everyone online, I'll talk to you later, okay? Hopefully you enjoyed the series. If you're watching from home, if you're not my student, I still hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you later, okay? Bye-bye.